Today we're going to get to the Word in just a moment, but I just wanted to take a moment and express just kind of, some of you have asked how things have happened. Well, several weeks ago my dad got sick, and he was showing symptoms of COVID, and so it was Saturday, December 5th, when I got over to my parents' house, discovered my dad's oxygen level and what he was at, and that he was running a fever, and talked to our dear friend Angie, who's a nurse at the VA, and she said, you better get your dad in there. And I knew at that point that I needed to take him and that I was going to be exposed to COVID. So my family kicked me out of the house at my house, and we happen to have an old motorhome that we are thankful for very much right now. And they moved me into the motorhome, and I stayed there for well over the quarantine time, and just recovered there. Meanwhile, my dad was at the VA, and I took him to the VA hospital. And I don't know if you've done anything during COVID time. You almost dump them at the curb. And I didn't. I walked him in, and then they said, well, we'll know in a few hours if we're keeping him. So I stayed in the parking lot till about 2 o'clock in the morning, when then they called and informed me that they were going to be keeping my dad. But we didn't see Dad at all, and he seemed to be doing pretty well. They got him. They were giving the same treatment that they were giving the president, so he was happy. And so he went through all the treatment and is doing well. As far as we know, he didn't come home with COVID at all. It looks like everything was done, except he struggled with breathing. The last several days, he struggled with breathing. In the meantime, my Aunt Esther, my mom's sister, took a fall, and she'd been real weak. She's 92, I think. And so she ended up on hospice care, and 3 days ago, she passed away, and she'd been a part of our church for years. And so Auntie Esther, my mom's sister, is in the presence of the Lord. That all happened 3 days ago. Well, my dad started struggling with his pulse ox. This was an important number we were watching, and it was struggling to stay in there, and they were having to put him on more and more on oxygen. And so they would keep increasing the oxygen. It came to a point they had to put him in ICU. And my dad did tell me on the way to the hospital, son, don't let him put me on a ventilator. And so we knew his wishes for that. And my dad's lived a full life. My dad is a blessed man, and we recount those times all the time. So over the last 3 or 4 days, Pastor Dad's health progressively got a little worse. It didn't really move much. But then he just wanted to come home. He just wanted to be with us. I tried to get in there to see him, different channels. I couldn't get in to see him. And so he would text us. Some of you saw his maybe his Facebook post, I'm kicking, just not very high, not very hard, type of thing. And so we're like going, Dad, what are you posting? And he was texting with us and texting with Mom. We really didn't get to, because of his hearing too much, get to listen to him much on the phone. I got the privilege of talking to him a few times on the phone. And his pleas were to me was, son, I know I hate to put this on you, but I need to get home to see Mom. And so then that became our marching orders. We argued with him a little bit, because it seemed like in those early days when he brought that up, we had a shot at getting better. Because he had cleared COVID, as far as they know, everything was doing good. He was just struggling in his lungs. And so then things started to pick up on Friday, that he was going to be able to come home. But my dad was on 40 liters of oxygen a minute. And so that type of oxygen level that was keeping my dad sustained in the 80s as far as his pulse ox numbers, those are good numbers, but not at 40 liters. And so The plea from him to the doctors and the plea to me and to the family was, please get me home to see my lady. And so that became our marching orders. That's what was the VA was trying to do. To get him home on that many liters of oxygen was going to be a task, so it could not happen on Friday. It took all day Saturday for Dad to finally get all the equipment there, multiple oxygen machines. The doctors did tell me that we hope we can get him home, and then if he gets home, then he'll do well. And so he was all excited. He was like a kid in a candy store, excited to come home and see Mom. And he was texting that way, and we were excited for him. We also knew what was ahead because he was officially going in hospice, and so we knew what we were facing, but we wanted to see Pastor Dad. And so then finally he was scheduled to be discharged at 7, but everybody knows the nurses switch at 7, so it ended up about 8 before he got in an ambulance to bring him to the house. We had all the equipment, we have all the bed and everything for hospice that was there. And then on the way, and I don't mean to giggle, but my dad would laugh, 2 trains stopped the ambulance, and they almost ran out of oxygen. So they actually came in lights and siren to our house to get my dad there before they were going to run out of oxygen because of the 2 trains that held him on the tracks for 15 minutes to get him home on the amount of oxygen that he was on. But then when we opened the back of the ambulance doors, there he is. Thumbs up, right? And of course he had a mask on and everything, and we got him in the house, and then we were all able to be with him and had an enjoyable several hours together, very enjoyable. Karen got to come over and see him. We all got to see him. He got to share words. He was telling us jokes, and we had all great health care providers. Many of them loved the Lord, so we were thankful for that. We had nurse care around the clock while we were there for the 6 hours. And then late into the night, Dad was tired, ready to go to bed. Mom was ready to go to bed. And so everybody kind of headed to bed. I kind of hung by my dad's bedside. He was doing pretty good. His numbers were actually going up about 2 a.m. And so we were excited. My brother is due to land here in about 30 minutes, and we were hoping he'd get here to see Dad. And coming from Nashville, and my niece and my nephew. But God's timing was different than our timing, and God's timing is perfect, I guess. About 3 o'clock, I noticed my dad starting to struggle a little bit, and the nurse was there. Kirsten was with me, and she isn't here because she's picking up my brother. And then we woke up Sherry and Mom, and at 3:17, he breathed his last breath and entered into the presence of the Lord, and we were so very thankful that we got to be with him. Hardest part of the whole thing was being separated from him and not being able to see him. He preached to my kids a little bit and those that were present at times in his last few hours, telling them a thing or three and telling us, but always loving Mom. Even in the bed, Mom was sitting across the room, and he goes, I see my lady over there. And so we had, as you can imagine, my dad's humor all the way through everything. One of the last text that we texted 2 jillion times, but I took a picture of it. He said this to me, to us all. He said, we need to decide to trust God. This is all caps. Or see if maybe doctors have better idea. I say trust God. We know him better. So that was where my dad was at. I told the doctors what he said. They got a chuckle out of that as well. So I know that those of you watching online, my baby girl, Elizabeth, and our extended family who are watching online today, we appreciate your prayers and covet them. And I wanted to just take a couple minutes because everybody's asked how everything went, and some of you didn't know how fast everything happened. But Mom, I thought it would be appropriate for people to know the precious last days, moments that we had with our founding pastor of our church. And we're thankful Mom is here today. And it was determined several days ago in my heart that no matter what was ahead, that my dad would want me here this morning to proclaim the Word of God. I stand behind a pulpit that was given to me by my father, that was given to him and handed down to me. And it says these words, preach the Word, my son. And it's a precious gift. And it too has its Mars of 2020. This big scratch right here is because we haul it back and forth outside and the cart scratched it. And now that will serve as a scar, as a reminder of the blessed time of doing everything we can to proclaim the Word of God. Here at Marino Christian Assembly, the founder of our church was faithful to proclaim the Word of God. We didn't preach politics. We didn't preach anything else except the Word of God, because it's this Word that is living and active and powerful. It's this Word that's going to sustain us. It's this Word that my dad reminded me of as he was in the hospital when he says, well, now I practice what I preach. And we put our trust in the Lord. I'm so thankful for a dad that when he lived his life and what he proclaimed from this pulpit to the people of Moreno Valley, and he's proclaimed from the pulpit over the years, was not what he just proclaimed as a preacher, but what he lived in his heart, in his life, every single day. It wasn't an image to put on, it wasn't a show to put forth, but it was truth. And truth is important. One of the things when we talked about the last moments that we were having with Dad, I had this conversation, I think, with a couple of my boys, was the truth is this: we've had a love relationship with Dad. So whether the last few moments together, we weren't coming there to mend anything. We weren't coming there to heal any scars. We were coming there to celebrate a life well lived, and we were thankful for that. And he has told us over and over again, live for Jesus. That's what matters. And today, I have the privilege of breaking open the bread of life today to proclaim you the Word of God on Christmas 2020, a year that has been full of challenges, a year that we have faced all sorts of questions and uncertainties. But we are truly thankful, and my mom wanted me to express to you especially we are so thankful for your prayers and your love for us extended to our family. We are so thankful that you check in on us and that you have prayed for us, and we know that you will continue to lift us up. We know Mom is suffering with the loss of her sister just 3 days ago, and now my dad, her husband, and we know that it is a difficult time, but we're going to have to trust God's plan.